maybe Saturday morning, I think. And Laura C. was leading worship. And you know, Laura C. is a different style. She's not the authoritative, like, come follow me. This was, I'm going to create an atmosphere, and you guys, you either get with it and enjoy it, or you're going to be bored stiff. You know, something like that. It's because she's not the, she doesn't sing a corporate song that we can all parrot the words. Sorry. And so those are good songs, but then it does come time we got to sing a new song. And that's Laura C.'s policy, and her mode of operation is, let's just sing a new song. Okay, so I'm sitting there. I had been standing for a while, and I sat down, and I thought, you know, I'm looking around. I'm not sure everybody is engaging here. There were a few standing, but many of them were sitting, and I thought, well, Lord, this is not really working for me right now at this moment. It had worked for me at other times, but just right now it's not working. And I thought, Lord, what am I going to do about that? You know, you could sweat, you could grunt a little bit, like, and see how that works, you know. Furrow your brow and grunt a little bit. That's not going to work. So I thought, well, Lord, wait a minute. Why does this have to be about me? Why does this have to be about me being the consumer or the point person of this worship moment? What about if I become a patriarch and I begin to move on behalf of the group? Now, you guys that are there, you may not remember this exact moment until a little bit later. I'm going to tell you something that happened, but this was very real to me in the middle of worship. So I said, well, Lord, how about if I begin to work on behalf of the people? Work is a bad word. Begin to move on behalf of the people. So I said, you know, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open a big door for everybody. And so I saw myself, literally, I had a picture in my mind of moving up through vines and like a Amazon forest, rainforest, moving up through, and I kind of moving through, and I came up to a big heavenly door, like a huge castle. It's like a 50-foot tall door, you know, a big wooden door with a big handle, and I reached up, and the door was way bigger than me, and it was so big it just opened real slow. Now this you'll just have to take my word for it, unless those who were there can specifically remember this. But it had been pretty low volume in the room at that point. But as soon as I opened the door, a volume came up from the people. And it wasn't any specific words, or that we weren't saying some line in unison. It was just a volume began to open up, with people vocalizing. And so what I did was, I had one hand up like this, and I took my fingers as if I was going around the very circumference or the perimeter of the room. And what I was doing is securing them. I was bringing them in. Okay, come on in. The door's open. I'm going to bring you in. So I came all the way around the room. As I came around the room, I felt there was just a lot of grace still to engage in this level, so I went around the second time. Now, here I'll tell you a little exercise, and this becomes very important in our spiritual operation, because moving in the head won't accomplish anything. It's what we do in and from our spirit is what gets the fruitfulness. So anyway, I came around towards the back of the room. I remember exactly in my mind, and I just began to race ahead in my mind. Okay, I'm going around. I thought, no. Right back over here, I got out of my spirit and went to my brain. I was looking now with my natural thoughts at that point. So I went back to that point and said, okay, wait just a minute. got down to my spirit. Okay, there we go. Now I'm engaged. And I continued on around the room. And I got almost around the room. And then I asked myself, is there more here? And I felt like, not only is there more here, but we can go up another level. And honestly, again, you'll have to just believe me at this point. As I got to this third time around, I said, okay, we're going up another level. In my spirit, I said, okay, here we go, another level. I kid you not. The volume went up another half, half of what it was. It went up half again, higher. And so I got all the way around the room again. I did this 3 times. And as I got to the end of the third time, I asked my spirit, is there more or are we finished? And I felt like, okay, I think we're finished. So I got to the end and I stopped. And I felt like I saw coming out of this doorway now, kind of intangible. I couldn't describe it really, but I felt like it was now going to be time for heaven to minister to the people. So they had ministered to God. Now it's time for heaven to minister to them. Like I said, what I saw coming out was somewhat intangible. I couldn't really describe it, but it was a flow that came out of heaven over the people. Well, those of you who were there, this is what you might remember. Charles got up and he said, all right, guys, it's time to breathe the oxygen of heaven. Do you remember that phrase? It says, time to breathe the oxygen of heaven. I thought, yep, there it was. It's time now to be the receiver. The people begin to be refreshed or be the receiver of heavenly flow at that point. And those of you who were there might remember that the guy on the whistle, the Native American whistles, just had the sweetest melodies that were the most softened the heart, just made the heart most pliable and receptive. And so that was a really cool experience for me to exercise our spiritual authority that you and I have been invited into. Now, when we start out, let me now go back out and say a bigger picture. When we start out walking in the Spirit, almost everything is about me, my, and mine. Everything's about me. The world revolves about me. God, you got to help me. I don't know how to get in. Can you help me? And it's all about me. And that's not a problem because that's where babies start out. Everything's about taking care of the baby. And God has a wonderful big heart. He just says, no problem. I'm going to take care of that for you. And so he is wonderful that he's the best father, mother heart ever. But then as we grow up, I feel like that he says, okay, now it's time to leave mommy and mommy's table, mother's cooking. Time to go be a forager on your own. Just you and father now going to go out in the big world. And then somewhere along the line, he says, how many people can you bring with you? You like that? How many people will fit under your arms of faith? What's been fashioned and formed in you until you have the capacity not only to stand in it confidently yourself, but then to embrace and bring others in with you. And so Scripture says we have 10,000 teachers, but not many fathers. Not many who can expand their arms of faith and bring others in. Now, I am confident nobody except you all know anything about that dynamic of what happened that day. But I feel like, with all my heart, with all confidence, there were no other influences in the room that affected that dynamic change that I know of, unless somebody else was doing the same thing I was doing. And that's possible. But my point is, God, I believe, is inviting us into beginning to co-reign. Romans 5:17, that you would reign in this life by the one man, Jesus Christ. And so he's inviting us into a place where we co-labor with him, where it's not about just me, mine, He says, okay, here, let me ask you this question. What if God, after we've been in the Lord for however long, we're seasoned, and he dries up the water a little bit. He dries up the stream. It's like, God, but I used to drink at this stream. What happened? He says, yeah. He says, now it's time to bring others with you. Take others to new pastures. And so, if you're experiencing some dryness somewhere along the line, just ask yourself, is it time for a new diet? And is it a time for a new perspective of now expanding your purview, expanding your capacity to bring others with you? And I know most of you on here that you have expanded your mantle of authority and influence to bring others with you. So kudos. Good job. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.